Hey, my name is Jake Workman. Welcome, everyone. I'm the solution engineering lead here at Recharge. And on the solution engineering team, our primary responsibilities include working with our sales and partnerships teams. And we're pretty much there to provide the technical expertise needed to support them. So throughout the past year, one of the biggest asks we've continued to hear in a lot of our conversations with merchants was the need to be able to offer bundling subscriptions. So stores want the ability to package multiple products together for a discounted price and have that flow through Recharge and Shopify seamlessly. There's a lot of ways to approach bundling. Each method kind of has their own pros and cons. So we decided to kind of take this as an opportunity to build out a demo store on how we would approach this problem if we were our own agency and we were working for a merchant that is wanting to convert their store to offer a demo product. So that's what we're going to be exploring today. So with that, let's kind of dive right in. So the goal of this presentation, like I said, is to take a deep dive into the bundling model sample store that we built out. First, we'll do a quick recap of what bundling is, some of its benefits. Then we'll walk through a few different methods on how to approach bundling on Recharge, as well as talking through the approach Recharge took while we feel this is the best way when incorporating Recharge. After that, we're going to walk through step-by-step how we build the store and then just show a quick demo of how the store functions. The audience, I wanted to touch on that briefly. The audience is pretty wide for this presentation. Any store that's looking to bundle multiple products together for purchase will benefit from this talk. But it's going to be fairly technical in nature and geared towards agencies and merchants with a full technical team behind them. So keep that in mind. If you're a merchant without a tech team or agency that you work with frequently, we encourage you to kind of reach out to our into the Recharge partner network to get connected with an agency that can help you implement your bundling model for you. One other thing to note about this Recharge store, this is not a production ready store out of the box, and what we'll show are not Recharge native features. Like I mentioned before, we approached this as if we were our own independent agency and how you could go about creating a bundling model store utilizing the existing Shopify and Recharge features available to us. So at the end of the presentation, I'll link the documentation and demo store, but what we have created should be interpreted as a great starting point for partners that are having trouble approaching a bundling build, but not something that is just plug and play and can work. So we've purposely made this build very basic and generic so it can be consumed by a wide array of partners. It can further be customized to fit each store's individual needs. So with that, let's dive right in. So a quick overview. So what is bundling? I think everyone kind of knows at a very high level, all bundling indicates is the concept of selling multiple products together as a package deal. And it's usually at a discounted price. Some benefits to it, value is obvious. Bundles increase customers' perception of value and in turn makes them feel really good that they got a good deal. Also convenience. Bundles will decrease the decision fatigue by presenting prepackaged options that are convenient for the consumer. So also, there's merchant profit. Bundling's proven way to increase the customer's average cart value just because they'll be adding more products to the cart. It's going to build more trust as well. Depending on how you set up your bundling model, curating suggestions can enhance the relationship between the merchant and the consumer, as well as inventory. Bundling can be an easy way to clear out overstock or your slow-selling products. If you set up the bundle model and incorporate those, you'll be able to move product easier. So there's countless other benefits to bundling models as a whole, but the bulk of what we're going to be focused on now is how to implement one rather than focusing on the marketing side of things. So now we've gone over what bundling is at a high level, some of its benefits. We're going to go over a couple models that we've seen utilized frequently on Shopify stores. So the first one is just the concept of pre-bundled products. The concept here is to work within the constraints of Shopify and just to set up your bundle item as a separate variant or product right inside of Shopify. So you can see here in the screenshot, we've got these two products, and then we just set up a separate product that's both of them combined. So it's certainly one of the easiest and fastest ways to implement a bundle into your store. It's just going to naturally flow right into Shopify and Recharge as normal. But there's some glaring limitations. The first one just being its rigidness and inability to be flexible. You'd have to manage all these various combinations of variants manually, which could be very cumbersome if you have a lot of products you want to offer in the bundle. So that's one big issue. There's also a limitation in Shopify that limits your variants on a product to, I think, a maximum of 99 or something around there. So if you have a large combination of variants, you're going to need to somehow account for that. So those are two big problems. In addition to that, inventory could potentially be a problem because you're creating a new variant or product with a separate SKU. You would need to work with your fulfillment center to make sure they're interpreting your bundle SKU to include all the products that it represents. So this is one approach we've seen a lot of stores take, and it works. It can be an adequate solution if your bundle model is very simplistic, it doesn't change often. But if you're looking for anything more flexible or advanced, you're more likely going to run into a lot of headaches with this. So a great approach, but definitely not very flexible. The next one we kind of want to touch on is the parent-child bundle concept. So the idea here is that you can create one master bundle product The product will contain the price and all the other attributes of the bundle subscription. And then you would pass the actual contents of the bundle as like free or $0 line items through the cart and checkout. So you can see here, we got this style box, which is $40. And then each item within it, we're just passing as $0 line items. So the benefits with this approach is much more flexible. You aren't as restricted by the Shopify platform. You can create as many products as needed through the cart. This is also a great model for bundles that utilize things like questionnaires to create personalized bundles for the merchant. After they input their answers to the site questions, you can create your logic to determine whatever needs to be done to add those products to the bundle and add them into cart. So very easy to kind of implement that. The downside of this approach, it can impact your reporting and analytics pretty heavily. So especially on the pricing side, sending lots of $0 products through your analytics tool will skew any real numbers and will need to be accounted for. This model also can become quite complex on the back end when trying to implement customer portal actions like swap or anything else intricate. So since there isn't anything really binding the bundle together outside of just the straight purchase, things can get pretty complex, like if you were to add a one-time product on top of it in the same order. So careful thought would definitely need to be put into consideration when you're trying to dole out all the logic in the back end in the customer portal. So that's kind of a better approach, I would say. In general, I believe this is more robust than the pre-bundled products we just walked through. There's still some limitations that would really need to be thought through. So those are two that we see pretty heavily before we really dove in and tried to approach this problem. It seemed like every store was going one of two ways, and these were kind of the two big main ones. But next, we kind of want to talk through the recharge approach and how we feel would be the best way to approach bundling to incorporate recharge with all of its feature set intact. So the recharge approach, like I said, we look to figure out what is the least disrupting approach that allows recharge to function as normal and flow directly into Shopify as the normal integrations does. So the way we were able to conceive this is to use the concept of line item properties. So anyone who isn't familiar, Shopify gives you the ability to add custom properties to each item in your cart, and these will be passed through on the order to be seen in the back end. Recharge is actually a great example of this. When you go through your product page and you hit recharge a subscribe and save button on the product page and you add that to cart, we're actually passing in our own line item properties that recharge consumes, so we can then send you to the recharge checkout and then consume all of that through recharge's functionality. So we are already doing that. We're just going to kind of add on to that with this new concept. We're going to be passing the concept of a bundle ID to the cart now as well. So in the example that we'll show, we set the bundle ID up as a GUID, but really any kind of unique identifier you want to use can work. We just need a way to signify that what you're passing into the cart has a unique bundle ID tied to it so that we can consume that in the back end. So we're going to be doing this by passing these line item properties through the cart from the product page, and we're going to do this through AJAX. So we'll use AJAX to do this, and it'll be making a call to the Shopify add to cart endpoint, and that's how it's going to be put in there. So we'll walk through that in a little bit as well. The beauty in this is that your product page can be built to whatever suits the individual store's preference. So if you want to do, like we were talking about questionnaires before, if you want to do some type of questionnaire bundling build, that would work out. If you wanted to do like a build-a-box page or really anything else that incorporates bundling, it will work. And then the big thing is just making sure you're using this AJAX method that we'll go over to add the bundle ID into the cart to each item that's part of the bundle. So this will let this flow. What's really great here is this will let everything flow through the checkout process as normal. So if it's just a one-time bundle, it's going to hit Shopify's checkout as normal. If it's a subscription bundle, it's going to hit Recharge's checkout just like normal. For items that hit Recharge's checkout, we also have thoughts around how you can do your customer portal. So we're going to walk through that as well. So as you can see here, the implementation of this is broken down into two distinct phases. First, the pre-purchase side, we're going to build out a bundling product page, and then the post-purchase will be where we're going to alter the Recharge customer portal. So now we've covered the approach at a high level. Let's walk through the implementation a little bit more in depth. So the bundling product page, like I was saying before, this page is very customizable, and really only thing that matters is that we're passing the bundle ID to the cart properly. So I won't talk too much on the logic behind the page itself. You can see here, this is our demo store. We created a build-a-box page. So I'm not going to touch on like the HTML of it and the layout, but we're going to dive into like how we did the add to cart and how we get the products actually with the bundle ID. We went with the approach that you would set up one product in Shopify, and then each of the tiles that you see here, these 6 soda cans, each of the tiles in the screenshot are actually going to represent variants of that product. So we've got each variant in here, and then we added plus and minus buttons, obviously, so you can select how much of each product you want. We also built this to be quantity driven. So on the page, your add to cart button is always going to be hidden until you have a total of 12 items added to your cart or added to your bundle here. This number 12 is very changeable. We show in the docs where you can make this number 6 or 8 or really any other arbitrary number that you want the consumer to select before proceeding to checkout. Then once you have all of your items selected, we call a JavaScript function that will essentially loop through each tile, grab the quantity of the variant, and then create an array of objects. And we'll pass that array of objects to the AJAX call. Each object in the array will contain that bundle ID as the line item property that we've been talking about. So then it'll get passed all the way through to the back end. So I'm going to walk through that very briefly here on how this AJAX method works. So as you can see here on the left, this would be what we would do. So this is our AJAX method. We're making a post call to the cart/add.js, which is the Shopify way to add something to cart. And the big thing we're passing in here is this items. And what is items? That's calling this generate cart function, which is outlined over here. So the big thing here is where we define that bundle ID. And we're calling this generate GUID function. So like I said before, this can be really anything you want it to be as long as the unique identifier. I think we used a JavaScript library to generate just a general GUID. So we'll see that here in a little bit. And then what we're doing is using jQuery to just loop through every one of those tiles. And for each of them, first we're going to pull out whatever the quantity is that the consumer selected. Then we're going to make sure that's greater than 0. We don't want to add carts to the product that don't have any quantity. So we're going to get the quantity, we're going to get the variant ID, and then we're going to create that item right here. So we'll have our ID as variant ID, quantity as quantity, and then here's where we're passing in that bundle ID for each item that we loop through. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to check if it's a subscription. So this is how the recharge widget actually functions under the hood. We're just kind of explicitly stating it since we're trying to override the default add to cart functionality. So if it is a subscription, let's let's update the ID to be the recharge duplicate product that we've already created. And then let's put in those shipping interval unit type and shipping interval frequency values as well. And then let's push that and add that to cart. So that's going to be what we create for this items. And then we're going to push that into the AJAX call, and then it's going to redirect us to the cart page. And when we get to the cart page, this is what it's typically going to look like. So if you go to your Cart.js, when you're on a cart page of a store, this is what it would open up to. So here's our items. This is going to be each item within the cart. And then these are those properties. So here's our recharge properties already that have already been stored in there forever. So interval unit type and interval frequency. And then here's that bundle ID. So each of those 12 products that we added to the cart are going to now have this value in there. So this is what we're kind of going to be using on the back end to do all of our bundle level actions and making it feel like that we have a bundled product together in our customer portal. So that's the front end side of things. At a very high level, it's not that complex. It's really just doing that AJAX method, and you can set it up in any way you see fit to get your bundling put together. So now that we've gone through that, let's talk about the customer portal. There's two main things we're going to do on the customer portal in our documentation. The first is to alter the subscriptions.html page to group our bundle items together. We don't want them listed in the same table amongst all of our other active subscriptions. It's going to create confusion. You're not going to know what's a bundle and what's not. So the first thing is to create different tables for our bundles and to show those. As you can see here in this example, we've got our subscription items. Here's our bundle ID, and then here are the items belonging to that bundle. So we'll talk through this in a little bit more depth as well. But that's kind of the first big thing. The other thing we're going to be doing is creating the concept of a bundle level action. So in the customer portal, we're all probably pretty familiar. You can edit your subscriptions, you can swap them, you can cancel them, you can do all that, but those are all at the subscription level. What really ties bundles together is to be doing actions at the bundle level. So to be able to do multiple actions at once. So how we do that is what Jason was touching on earlier today was our bulk action endpoints. So being able to update multiple subscriptions at once. So we're going to use that concept of the bundle ID to figure out what products are tied to the bundle. And then we'll have something like this, like the update order date. We can use this button then based on all of the products that are part of this bundle ID to update all of them at once. And then that allows us to create the illusion of a bundle action, even though under the hood, they're still all 12 individual products that are on subscription. So that's the idea at a very high level. One other thing to note even though we built this out on our old standard portal, if you go through all the docs, they're built on the old one. Everything we're talking through right now is also compatible with our Novum theme and any other new themes that we release in the future, as Jason was alluding to earlier today as well. So this is very compatible with themes. So feel free, if you're reading through the docs and how we went about approaching something, if you want your base to be started off of Novum or something else, it should very easily translate in that capacity. So with that, let's take a look at how we can approach implementing that bundle action we're talking about, the updating order date. So with the good news here on implementing actions in the customer portal, Recharge already has a lot of this functionality needed built stock into the customer portal. We have a Recharge object inside of our scripts.js file, and it's got things that already create functions for doing like AJAX gets, AJAX posts, calls. Really all we need to do is leverage those existing functions and create our new endpoint. So as you can see here, how we're adding our new endpoint to the recharge.endpoints object here is to just set up a new function that emulates what that endpoint is. So in our case, we're passing in the address ID, and we just have to go to subscriptions-bulk-update. So that creates the endpoint we need for our AJAX call. And then down here, we've also got this concept of recharge.subscription object already set up. And if you're familiar with the scripts.js or you look through it, it'll be very obvious what's going on here. All of your subscription level actions are all going to be bundled together into this object. So we'll just add a new one for bulk updating. And you'll see here, we make the recharge.actions.put. So we'll make a put call. And all we'll do is go to that bulk update subscription URL that we defined up here, and we'll pass in the address ID and the data. And let's see how we define that before we call it. Over here is the button action handler. So when we actually click that update order date button, this is what's going to happen. So first, we're going to grab the form. We have that button tied into a form overall, and the form is going to contain these things in here. So first, the address ID we have as a hidden input, so we'll grab that. The date, that will be what the end user will be able to input. So whatever date they want to update their bundle, their next charge date for their subscription to, they'll input that. And then we have this clever concept of subscription IDs here. So like I was talking about before, how we're going to use that bundle ID that got passed through in the line item properties. Inside the code in our theme engine, we did some clever stuff where we grouped together and made a list of those subscription IDs that belong to the bundle, and we just put them inside a hidden input. So we'll grab those subscription IDs as well from the form. And then all we'll do is loop through those subscription IDs, and then we'll do the same thing kind of we did with the AJAX call on the front end, where we'll create an object an array of objects here. So we'll pass in our ID and our next charge date for each subscription that's part of the bundle. And then we'll call that function over here, recharge.subscription.bulk-update, and we'll pass in the data. So this is how we can actually update our subscriptions, all 12 of the subscriptions that are part of that bundle. So really simple once you kind of dive into the details of it, because really all we need to do is grab the info from the form, create that object, and then call the endpoint that we had already created. So now that we've talked about all the features of the build, I want to dive right into a live demo and just show you what this looks like on the hood. So we've created this sample store called Carbonate, and it's based on a soda brand. So nothing too wild on this front end page. It's just a normal home page. Our products page will be the same thing you would see on any Recharge store. So if you were to go to one of these 12 packs, you're going to see the Recharge subscribe and save widget. This will operate just like a normal Recharge product, as you would see. The front end piece is this build a box page like we were talking about. So this is where someone can come in and they can create whatever type of thing they want. So I can put 3 apples, 2 cherries, 1 cola, however many raspberries I want to. And the big thing is I have to get up to 12 items before my add to cart button becomes relevant. And once I do that, my add to cart button now becomes active. And it's also price compatible. So if I hit one-time purchase versus subscribe and save, it's going to update my cost as normal. And then when you add that guy into cart, it's going to then take you to your cart and it's going to add in those line item properties as we were talking about. So here's our bundle ID that's now on each product. That's part of it. And it's also got the recurring line item properties in there as well. So that's how the front end is going to work. And then when we look at that on the back end, if we were to go into the portal, so on the customer portal now, this is going to look just like a normal customer portal out of the box. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom, here's your normal subscriptions. Here's your one-time subscriptions, your canceled subscriptions as you would normally expect. But what we also have now is that those bundle subscriptions like we were talking about. So you'll notice on our bundle level actions, we don't have edit, we don't have swap, we don't have cancel like we do down here. But what we have instead is this guy right here, the update order date. So this is where they can come in here, they can select their date, and then when they submit, it will now update everything in this bundle. Instead of being October 23rd, it will now be September 9th. So that's the concept, and what's really great about it is using this bundle ID all the way through the process. And all those cons we were kind of talking about in the beginning of like skewing inventory or not having good analytics, none of that should be prevalent in this approach, because the big thing is we're not altering anything with the recharge process. So it's going to flow through Shopify to recharge back to Shopify exactly as a normal recharge product would. The only thing we're doing is using this bundle ID to kind of mask on the front end that the end user has this concept of a bundle in place. But really, like I said, these are 12 individual subscriptions under the hood. So it's all about just creating that illusion to the customer and providing value to them that way. And then on the back end, you're still going to have everything you need access to. So our enhanced analytics package will still work. We're going to, like I said, work with inventory correctly. So a really great approach to, I think, tackle every con we've seen on people trying to approach bundling while still being fully compatible and being dynamic enough to build on this and put any other spin on it that you would want to see fit. So that's the store itself. I want to dive back in. I want to talk about a little bit some considerations. So now that we walked through the template build, I wanted to touch on some things that maybe this recharge build could improve on. So the first is the support for bundles and multiple products. At the beginning, we were talking about the pre-sales product page. I noted that the way we built this was to create one Shopify product with multiple variants. A logical need would also be to be able to add different products to the bundle rather than just having one product with different variants. So this is definitely something that could be improved. While we didn't explore this in our build, a really easy approach I think can be taken. So the way we built it is to leverage a Shopify product page, but instead you could probably leverage a Shopify collection instead. Then you just need to turn that collection page into the Build-A-Box page like we talked about, and you would still have access to all the various different products that are part of the collection. So I do think that's one approach that could be taken if you're facing that challenge, if you're absorbing our documents. So the next one, price-based bundling. Ours is built around the concept of quantity. So like I was talking about before, you have to put 12 products in your cart for the bundle to work out. But instead, if you wanted the bundle to be, say, any X number of products under $50, you can approach this by altering the code we outlined to check the constraint on adding the cart and just adding the price check in there before the consumer is allowed to add cart. So I think that one could be taken care of fairly easily as well. Another improvement could be around cart and checkout enhancements. So we don't really explore the cart or the checkout pages in our docs. We really just go through the product page on the front end and then the customer portal. But if you wanted to do anything bundle related on those pages, you could look to alter them via our recharge JavaScript settings if it's in the recharge checkout, otherwise leveraging Shopify's cart and checkout pages for the Shopify side of things. And then finally, adding more advanced customer portal actions. Like we talked about, we only show adding one portal action, updating the next charge date. But the logic from that action can be directly applied to any other bundle level action you might want to implement. So we purposely left this area very vague. It was a decision we thought about internally, but we wanted to only show one, as different stores are going to have all kinds of different constraints on how they want to be able to like swap products, cancel your subscription, things like that. So we wanted to just lay out an approach on how to do one button action, and then you'll have a starting point for any actions or any logic you might want to add in the future to supplement your individual stores. So that's why we did it the way we did. And just to wrap up, I wanted to share some of the resources. So this presentation is being recorded, and we'll be distributing the recording for you to consume in the future. But the first link here is the bundling demo store. So what I had just walked through up there, feel free to take a look and play around in it as you see fit. We encourage anyone with questions on it to come in here and let us know. The second one here is the actual docs of how we went about building this. So we have a PDF that you can get access to. Reach out to your partner manager or recharge support or anyone, and we can get you access to this. But this lays out exactly how we went about building it. So first we demonstrate the approach, and we talk about the overview of how we went about doing it. We talk about how to set up your Shopify store with the product side of things. Then we kind of dive into the pre-purchase functionality. We have code snippets of exactly how we went about implementing that Build-A-Box page and how we implemented the add to cart and all of that. And then if we go all the way down, we also have code snippets for the backend side of things in the customer portal. So really in-depth docs. So feel free to consume these and come to us with any questions you have or want to talk through in more depth. But this really outlines everything that I've gone through in this presentation. So this is going to be your key that you want to look over. And then just some others. The last two are recharge guides around certain topics that we've covered. So the first one outlines how to handle the AJAX methods to add items to the cart that we talked about on the product page. I've also linked here our theme engine documentation that talks through the bulk subscription endpoint that we used in the customer portal to update our next charge dates. So all of that really great documentation. And with that, I just want to thank all of you for coming to ChargeX today, joining me for this talk. I hope everyone's found some value in this. And if you're thinking of approaching the concept of bundlings for your stores, I hope this can provide value. The solution engineering team is very excited to have spent time on the sample build, and we're going to be bringing more of this type of content in the future as well. So again, my name is Jake Workman. If you have any thoughts or questions around bundling, don't hesitate to reach out.